Okay, we'll jump right into it. I wanted to talk to Cavario. There's a little mini news story out of New York, but I guess it's a big deal in New York. A guy named Blue Boy, Luis Rosado, whose claim to fame primarily, or well, I want to sum up his humanity, but the reason he may be well known is he's the guy who killed Larry Davis in prison back in '09. Larry Davis was one of the most infamous in media terms, one of the most publicized criminals of the bad old days of New York in the 80s. When he was about 19 or 20 years old, he shot 6 cops in the Bronx. Luckily, none died. And he actually was found not guilty on one set of charges, much in the same way the Black Panthers used to get found not guilty for shooting police in the past, saying he was legitimately in fear for his life. But they tried him several times, and he eventually got along. Oh, no. He was convicted of killing the drug dealers. He beat all the cop charges.
You don't have to be forced with gunpoint in order to have somebody rob them, but you can force them mentally. Because if you deprive them of certain things such as education, jobs, something, if you really knew how this government functions, you would not call yourself a criminal. I mean, because 9 out of 10, if you look at the statistics of how you are confined, how these brothers are confined, and what reasons they are confined for, the crimes they alleged to have committed, which are essentially either selling drugs or either robbing people, they end up at. But it's a part of a conspiracy, a genocide conspiracy.
So he was serving 25 years. He was killed in '08, right before he was going to get out, by Luis Rosado, a guy named Blue Boy. Blue Boy had already killed 2 people in prison. He was in prison for murder when he killed Larry Davis, but he got out recently after doing 39 years in prison. He made the rounds of social media. Most well known, he had several million views on Vlad TV, and he now is in custody for another attempt murder. He had been working as a guard at a dispensary owned by Glenn Big Baby Davis of NBA fame.
Really?
Which is interesting. I mean, Glenn Davis said, "Hey, I'm giving a guy a chance." I mean, yeah, there's a lot of other felons with less potential downside than him that you could hire before him. And Glenn Davis said he liked hearing his stories and he learned a lot from him. Not to be funny or disrespectful, I don't know what a normal person, much less an NBA player, has to learn from someone who's been in prison for 39 years. I don't know if it's a realistic way of, if you just want to say it was fun or interesting to talk to him, just say that. I don't really think there's a lot you could per se learn. But you knew Larry, you met Larry Davis and interacted with him somewhat. And my thing of why I had no interest, and I have no interest in interviewing certain people, including Blue Boy, unless you were going to ask him about, did the police put him up to killing Larry Davis?
Right.
He's just, and I'm not talking bad about him. He's just a person that had a sad, rough life, a dark experience of life, 39 years in prison, killed several people in prison. He was such a tough guy, contrarian in the prison system. He's called Blue Boy because he's a Crip, but mind you, he's Puerto Rican from the Lower East Side. He went to prison in '82 before the Crips had barely been heard of in LA, much less New York. He only became a Crip in prison because everyone else were Bloods, and he just want whatever all y'all are, I'm the opposite, so we can beef in prison. That's the kind of guy he was. Must have been a tough guy, at least in prison standards. But tell us about so that's interesting to me, and we could get into the whole glamorization of criminals. But first and foremost, tell us about your experiences with the truly infamous Larry Davis.
Well, back in 1985, I was hustling on 154th Street between
selling drugs.
Selling crap, because that's what you did back then. So,
well, no, I mean, people don't, some of these regular people don't,
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, because today hustling has a much broader connotation. In the day,
Could be selling counterfeit Hermes belts or something.
Right, exactly. That's exactly right. That's a perfect fucking example of what people consider hustling. And don't get me wrong, it is hustle. It's hustle. If it's not,
but that meant something. It had a specific meaning.
Yeah, if it's not a formal sort of employment, then it's a hustle. You know what I mean? You're not being taxed. You know, it's only going to produce as much as you put into it. That's hustle. You know, it's also known as entrepreneurialism today, right? But that was my hustle back then. And
real quick, back then, if somebody said they were hustling, did it mean they were selling drugs?
Okay. Straight selling drugs.
That's what I meant to get, like,
right.
It's broadened as a term.
Right.
Just like dope used to mean heroin. Didn't mean it's cool. Or we smoking weed. It meant heroin. I'm hustling dope. I'm selling illegal heroin.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
So you're selling crack in the Bronx.
No, this is Harlem.
Okay.
In Harlem. So I had a couple little homies, Little Charlie, rest in peace, Little Charlie, and Roger. Roger's still around. Me and Roger, we talk about those days and Larry and all that stuff a lot.
Roger Bonds?
No. And so we call him Deepak. I introduced you to him on the phone one time. We were out in La Quinta. Me and him were talking for a while.
I remember. Yeah.
So he got a lot of Larry stories because they worked for me. And so they would take I was giving them dope. I was selling crack. But I was
giving Larry Davis. Oh, you're giving Larry Davis in his hand heroin.
Yeah, I was giving him heroin. So
what age was he?
I was 18 going on 19, so Larry was about my age. Yeah, Larry's about my age. He was about my age. He may have been maybe a year older, something like that.
So you helped corrupt Larry Davis. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, he was already quite corrupt.
Oh,
Larry was a bad person, man. No bullshit about it. No bullshit about it. Like, you know, people who knew me from back in that time, a lot of people, if they didn't have close proximity, they weren't close proximity to me, they would have said, yo, Cavarrio is a bad person. You know what I mean? Because they wouldn't be apprised of my daily behaviors. They would only be apprised of those things that stood out. So I heard he did this to somebody, and I heard he did that to somebody, whatever. So that would be their total of me, all of the outrageous things. So, you know, people looked at, you know, people like, you know, people who used the violence, they looked at as bad people. But that shit was par for the course. You know that. It's par for the course in the street.
I was going to say, at that time, I mean, especially in heroin, there weren't as many people selling drugs. You're in Harlem, and it's very dangerous. Anyone involved, that wasn't like something to do to be cool. Like if you were selling drugs uptown, Bronx, Harlem, yeah, you had to be.
It was serious.
Yeah.
If you weren't really about that life, you didn't have any opportunity to pretend. Right? Because if you weren't about that life and you was in the lane, you were like one of few. So we could discern you really easily. We could say real quick, this motherfucker ain't really about it. And you're going to have a problem. You're going to get pushed out because your existence in the space is a threat. Because whatever happens, you're going to revert to your truth. So if you ain't really about the life, everybody else who is in trouble. Right. So it was not a game that anybody would just try to play back then. It really wasn't, you know. So Larry and Charlie and Roger, aka Deepak, and another brother, he's also dead now. We used to call him DMC. Him and Deepak were partners. Those guys. Now Deepak and DMC, we used to call him that because he looked like Daryl Mack. Those guys worked for me in a few different crack spots through the 80s. Right. So they're the ones who brought Larry around. And I was on, like I said, I was on 8th, between 8th and McCombs, right? Which is just on the other side of the 161st Street Bridge on the, you know, right opposite the Yankee Stadium.
That's where the Bronx, so that's where you cross from Harlem into the Bronx, right?
Right. And just above us on the hill, that's Washington Heights, right? That's where Larry needs to go do their thing at. So they would go up there, pretend to be cops, all type of shit. They would go up there with badges and all type of shit and pretend to be cops and finagle their way into coke spots and rob the Dominican drug dealers.
Okay, now let's go back. Take us to your introduction to like, how'd you meet him? He just was a kid who came around because, as you said, that wasn't a time I first started being given those $300 crack sacks, 87, 88. Crack was so rampant. Even in real dangerous neighborhoods, like it was a thing like everybody got a $300 sack, like, you know, and you messed it up or you didn't. It wasn't, I mean, in that area, it was just as dangerous as that. But as a couple years later, there was a lot of people selling small amounts of drugs. But was so any kid could kind of, I mean, you had to be half tough or whatever, but like a lot of people floated in and out of it. But at that time, Larry wouldn't have just been, oh, yet another child drug dealer I'm going to give a bag to. He had to have been like, how'd you meet him and why were you willing to give him drugs? And, you know,
I mean, I met him, like I said, I met him through guys who had been hustling for me for, you know, years off and on, you know, and, you know, and my reputation was very serious. So they knew that they had, if you're going to bring somebody around me, you're going to be held accountable for how they, you know, perform. And they knew Larry was, they just knew he and I would get along, you know. They might have thought of us in the same way to a degree, you know what I mean? They knew I was smart. Larry wasn't dumb. He was very talented.
No. He had a record label. So was all that real?
Yeah, he was very talented. Talent? Yes, he was very talented and all that, you know.
They
but
say
you know,
record label.
He's a wild kid from the Bronx. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, and in the area he's from over there, Webster. He's from Webster Projects and like that.
Jerome and Webster and all that stuff. Yeah,
it's why it's, you know, like those, when you hear about the South Bronx of that day, they're talking about areas like that. You know what I mean? That's the South Bronx shit. You know, up there where I grew up, or really behind me, because I grew up on the concourse, which is still pretty fucking nice, especially right in the shadow of Yankee Stadium. But you know, Fort Washington was 3-4 blocks behind me. You know what I mean? And it was all of the blight that is associated with that time and place, all of it, all of the abandoned buildings, the burnt down buildings that the landlords were paying the gangs to set on fire because nobody was paying their rent and they weren't going to fix the places up and that type of shit. That was a norm, you know. So, you know, he comes from a pretty bad, you know, environment, background, you know what I mean? But he, you know, he was that, but there was more to him than that. So, you know, some people from that environment, man, they can resist the worst aspects of it, and still participate, but resist the worst aspects of it. Some don't want to. Some get caught up in whatever that power feels like or whatever, and it just takes them away. I think Larry was kind of like that, because Larry had aspirations for doing things that he had the ability to do, but he wasn't as focused on it as he should have been. Otherwise, he would have had plenty of time to really pull his shit together. But he got into being a fucking bandit. He got into that shit.
So, like, how much drug will you give them guys? Like a sack to work on the street, or how did that go?
No. I would give them like maybe 10 bundles. So 10 bundles, 10 bags each bundle, and each bag is like $25, something like that. Right.
So you give them a $2,500 sack or something.
Right. And I tell them bring back 15, and you take the stack.
Oh, so that's pretty generous.
Right. And I had him down at the hotel. It's an infamous hotel in my neighborhood in Harlem.
Was that where JFK Jr. or whatever?
That's where JFK Jr. got busted.
Or Robert F. Kennedy, or whoever it was, yeah.
So it was JFK Jr. He got busted copping. Yeah, busted copping. But he's like, people have seen him in there many times before he got popped.
He's the one who crashed the plane. He's the one who crashed the plane on coke, too.
Yes. Oh, he was coked up when he crashed that plane?
I mean, you know,
that's the story?
I think they covered it up, but that was the implication.
Yeah. He was, you know, he liked to party. He liked to party.
Boy, flying a plane coked up don't sound like a party to me, but I guess.
I think that happens a lot more than people would imagine. I think that the people who've been flying for a really long time, they look at it just like people who've been driving for a really long time. In fact, they probably are even more lax because comparatively, flying is nowhere near as dangerous as driving.
Because once you're up, it's really just taking off and landing. And even that, I think with the takeoff, you get enough speed, you take off. Probably just the landing, and really you're just watching your instruments. I don't know, but yeah, you're right. Once you're up, there's no planes to bump into.
Right. Like
there's no divider wall to bump into.
Crashes, bro.
Yeah.
That virtually never fucking happens. Mid-air crashes. That means you have to have two incompetent motherfuckers flying at the same time.
And they got to be near each other. Like you're right.
It never happens. Right. You know.
So how long did he sell drugs for you, roughly?
Probably about a few months. Probably a few months.
Did you know? Now let me ask this:
maybe like a few months, because it was during this interaction that he shot the police.
Is that what caused you to stop dealing? You didn't see him after that? So you saw him on the news and were like, "Oh shit, that's my guy," or
no? They came to see me and say, "Yo," they paged me. In fact, they paged me, and I went to the phone and they said, "Yo, did you see this shit?" I didn't know nothing about it. They said, "You see this shit?" I said, "What?" They said, "Yo, they got a manhunt for Larry." I said, "A manhunt? What the fuck is you talking about?" They said, "Yo, they got a fucking manhunt for Larry." And that's what it was. I'm gonna hit Deepak and have Deepak chop it up with us about this. He been wanting to talk about this on camera for a long time.
Okay, we'll do a Larry thing with him in the next 3 days.
Yeah. So
you never saw him. You never saw him after that.
Never saw him again. So when they used to come and see me, sometimes just after they hit their lick, hit when they licks, right? And they had a van. They used to ride around it. Larry had a van. And they would, one time, I think I told you about this before. They came to see me in 54th, and I was working behind the door, you know. And they gave me, they showed me their badge on this, you know, thing. Cuff holster with the cuffs in it. Stun gun with the stun gun case with the stun gun in it. And the badge, the holster, the stun gun, and the holster, you know, old school holster that go over here like this, and got the little gun right here, and you go like this. So they had all that.
Did they get it from a cop, or did they buy it? Did they buy it or get it from a cop?
I think they got it from the cops.
Because back then, I mean, even now with the internet and stores, but to be like a 19-year-old black male in the South Bronx,
you ain't walking into no motherfucking store saying, "Give me that holster," and no.
It's that stun gun. Yeah, right.
Somebody's gonna have to give you that. You're a young black male that time and space. Somebody has to give you that. Somebody who has access to that has to give it to you. Where you get it from?
So does that lend some evidence or credence to that he, you know, his story? For those who don't know, let me give a quick synopsis. So there was some drug dealers murdered in Washington Heights, and Larry Davis and maybe some other places, and he was the suspect. There was like 4 or 6, a lot, and Larry Davis was the suspect. They went to serve a warrant, I think, his sister's house. A bunch of cops came. At that time, police in general, United States, were a little less professional. Like their training wasn't as good. A lot of it was just some guys, some people with guns and a badge. So they mass up.
And they have revolvers.
Right. There's no SWAT. There's limited SWAT teams, I should say. They don't have, it's regular beat cops like, hey, mount up. We about to get this guy. Right. He shoots at them. They shoot at him.
No, he gets away.
Them. Right. He hit them. They didn't hit him.
He shot 7 shots and he hit 7 cops with shot each. The female one, he hit her in the mouth.
Yeah. So his defense, when he was taken to court, and there was a big manhunt, and I have some footage, and I'll work that into this story. But long story short, he goes on trial, and he says, I had been selling drugs and doing hits for these crooked cops, and I figured when those police were outside, they were there to take me out. I was in fear for my life. They fired first, missed. I fired in self-defense, and the jury agreed. Now, again, he was found guilty of taking the lives of some of those drug dealers, so that's why he got the 25 to life. But the jury found it. I don't know how plausible, if they per se believed exactly what he said about working for cops, but they believed enough and thought he was in danger that, you know how hard it is to shoot some police, to be a black male, shoot some white cops and get found not guilty. That's very rare, but it does happen. So you're saying he had police equipment that you find it next to impossible that he hadn't gotten it from cops, which doesn't mean 100% that he was doing what he said for cops, but it's a piece of circumstantial evidence.
He was.
Okay, so you think he was, or you're...
I know he was.
Oh, you know he was.
Yeah, he was.
Well, we don't want to implicate you in any conspiracy to commit homicide, but
he was.
So you had a strong feeling. Yeah, so he may have vaguely mentioned something along those vague lines.
Yeah, it just happened. They just happened to know where all the coke dealers were. Right. Who to rob. They just happen to know who to rob.
I didn't think of that, really.
And they got in it. Let me tell you something. Back then, getting in and out of Washington Heights was not easy without getting pulled, because you had all these people coming over from Jersey and Pennsylvania, upstate and all that kind of stuff. And it was copping and it was really hot. So if they saw your vehicle around it too often and you didn't live around it, you're getting pulled over.
And shots
and if it's
fired.
you and 4 other motherfuckers in the car, in the van, with all this equipment and all this shit and whatever. Like,
and shots fired. It was just some shots fired.
And nothing happened.
Oh. And there was like 3 I think there was like, he did 2, and then he did a couple. Like there was like 4 or 5 people and like 3 incidents. Like it was.
He was active as a motherfucker, bro. He was, at first, it was just go in, rob them, take the coke, take the money. Right? Keep the coke, pass the money. Then he started going in and taking the leather jackets and the jewelry and VCRs and, shit like that. Then he started taking the women on a couple of occasions. This is what it is.
For forced activities?
Yes, sir. That's how. Now you got to think. He's in there. You're robbing them, and you take a break to go and fuck.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's how confident. That's how confident he was with the situation.
Okay, so you could call it crazy, or you could call it confident.
Confidence. He was kind of, he wasn't worried about it.
No, you're right.
He wasn't worried about nothing happening. He wasn't stupid either, but he wasn't worried about nothing happening.
No, I agree. That's a good. I didn't think of that either. Like the average person, you would think, "Oh, damn, he was so crazy." Unless, you're already doing something evil, and taking a woman in a back room is evil. I'm not, but what you're already doing is awful, actually. And then you're not afraid of the police coming because you gained entry. So people know. So Washington Heights was probably one of the only place in America you could go and buy weight on the street. So there was these barricaded apartments that probably had multiple layers of security. So for them to even get in there to be laying people on the ground, they had to be in a crew. They had, you just said they had police equipment. So they were posing as police to at least get close enough to get in. It all makes sense. I mean, you certainly weren't there, so you don't know, but it makes sense.
You know, when they came to see me one time and they had the bag, when they showed me the bag and stuff, I was like, yo, let me hold that. Right? And I got the badge, the holster, both the handcuffs and the stun gun case. I put them all on, and I stood in front of the door of my own spot. And my cousin was behind the door. And when a person came up the cop, I'm just standing there. Now, when I'm 18, I probably looked about, you know, maybe 16 fucking years old, right? And real clean cut, close tight fade, like military, bubble jacket, you know, straight leg jeans, New Balance. I look like a detective. So when I put this shit on, I really was very easily taken for a detective. So I stood there. The dude walks up, he looks at me. I was looking at him, just standing there. He looks at me, knocks on the door, and the guy said, you know, my cousin said, what's up? He goes, give me two. And as soon as he slid there was money under the door, and the two came out from under, he stood up, I grabbed him, pulled the badge out, said, get against the fucking wall. Don't fucking move. Right? He's like this. He was shook as shit. So then another guy comes up. So this guy's standing there. I'm standing there. And this guy looks at us. And, you know, the first thing in the crackhead's mind in those circumstances is, I don't want nobody to see me copping because I'm not giving anybody any. Right? So he looking to see, is this somebody that I done got to smoke off of before or something? I got to give him, right? So he looked. Once he recognized that he doesn't recognize either of us, he go on and he cop. The dude is standing there going like this.
So even though there's cappers, like I've seen that, like the police are there, they still crackheads. Like they don't walk there. They want to get out.
He copping. They
are so terrible. Crackhead is the worst. Oh, I say hate crackheads. They ain't got no, like, a dope fiend could be sick and at least be like, well, let me sit tight and see if that's the police or something.
Right. Yeah, crackheads didn't seem to have access to the logic center. Seriously, bro. I've seen some fucking things, man. And I started selling crack well, before the word crack, I was selling Freebase in 1981. You know, and the word crack didn't exist. And the mindlessness of, you know, the just reckless abandon of the people who were smoking. I'm talking about people who I knew that had been in the street forever and been getting tons of money and had beaten drug wars, had beaten indictments, you know, and that Freebase shit took them completely fucking out. So I knew long before it made news. Wow. I said, this shit is definitely some shit that a motherfucker don't need to be fucking playing with. Because I knew tough, really tough motherfuckers, real badass motherfuckers. That shit rocked them. It rocked them. You know what I mean? So it wasn't something to be played around with. Most people don't have the mental capacity to manage a glass of alcohol, let alone, cocaine. You know what I'm saying?
Let alone crack. Yeah, you're smoking it. Yeah,
you know what I mean? So the guy bends down and the other guy standing next to me going like this with his eyes. Like trying to say, like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. And I'm trying to keep a straight face. And the guy cops and he stands up and I say, hey, motherfucker, get your ass up against the fucking wall, man. What the fuck is going on here? What the fuck is you doing? And I held it for a couple of minutes and I just bust out laughing because these motherfuckers were so goddamn scared. It was so mischievous
young drug dealer.
Bro. I really was.
Mischievous young drug dealer.
But those guys, Larry and Little Charlie and Big Charlie, which was Little Charlie's father, he ran around with these young niggas. And Little Charlie's father was 20 years older than me. And he's running around with his son, Deepak, DMC, and Larry.
Did did any of those guys go on the murder trials with him, or you don't remember?
No. Nope. Not at all.
I mean, he was said to have been doing those things by himself.
I guess he became the center of the attention because of the incident. When he shot them cops at his sister's house, it was all about him. Nobody was interested in anybody else.
Even for the murders
he was the boogeyman.
I'll have to look up the cases. I would imagine they probably rounded up some informant. It must have, the way they convicted him, they must have had someone testify against him or something.
They had anybody. I mean, you know, these motherfuckers were doing a lot of shit. You had the Dirty 30 up there. Those motherfuckers were selling drugs, sticking people up, getting people killed. These are cops at the 30th precinct. I used to live in Washington Heights.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us, give us an experience from that era that you narrowly avoided or knew of or saw or had happen to you with some cops.
I mean, I was always, because of my training, I was always really good at avoiding the bullshit, bro. It wasn't difficult. It wasn't difficult. It was not difficult.
Because the cops weren't no brilliant. They were
not at all.
Kind of a form of a thug too. I mean, they're not.
They're just motherfuckers who just happen to get to take the test. They probably took the test. Most of them people, especially during that era, they took the test for the post office. They took the test for the police, and they took the test for fire department.
Civil service.
Civil service. Post office.
Well, no, fire department. You had to be in good.
Right.
Fire department. You had to go through that rough physical thing.
Right.
You know?
So
it's probably civil service, post office, police.
Yes. So whenever they got called, whoever called them first, they went in. And there was a point where they had a huge deficit in cops, a huge deficit. So they were just hiring anybody, bro. They were hiring anybody. I got a bunch of little homies from the Bronx who became cops.
And you were like, you were probably like, you're a cop? Oh my God. Yeah.
Right? And most of them were Puerto Rican. But they became cops. I was like, how the fuck you become a cop? It's like super fucking easy. It was dumb.
Yeah, I ain't have no felony.
Numbers.
Yeah, don't have a felony is about it.
Yep. They were desperate for numbers. So they was hiring any and every fucking body, man. 4-foot motherfucking 100-pound women, like all type of shit.
Did like, you ever, were you and your family ever paying off cops?
Back in Harlem in the 70s.
Okay, when they had the big heroin thing going on, but by the time this was going on, not really.
Nah. Those kind of cops that were really, they was down. They was with the shits, as the kids say. You know what I mean? They were
part of the organized crime ring, basically.
Yes. And those relationships were established over a long period of time. When they started hiring motherfuckers in mass out of nowhere, whatever, you didn't know who the fuck you were getting. So that structure broke down. There was always some cop that you could, you could call and say, yo, I always had a cop that I could call and say, yo, you heard about this, or did you ever hear this person's name before, whatever. Sometimes they would just call me. They would just call and say, yo, don't fuck around on 145th, man, or 8th Avenue, man. All those niggas is telling. You know what I mean? From 55th to 45th, all them niggas is telling. And I got a lot of fam in that space. You know what I mean? But they also know, like, during the middle to latter 80s into the 90s, there was a lot of motherfuckers uptown that people knew that was telling their ass off.
Who was somebody, yeah.
Yes, who was somebody. They were telling. They were working with it was their way. That was the way they did it. It's like, and to them,
not even so much they got caught and were telling they were on an ongoing relationship with the police while they were selling and doing.
Because they wasn't about that life. They weren't going to get down. They just want to get money and be fly. But if you're going to get money and be fly, you got to be willing to protect your shit. They weren't with that part of it. So
then you have people like Preacher who were with all of the above.
Yeah. So that their way was, I got these motherfuckers right here. I
But
give them a little something.
There was killers telling too. I mean, you had like Preacher and them.
Preacher? Hell fucking yeah. Preacher's wife told me, out of her own mouth, she told me that the first names out of his mouth were her son, his and her son, and his and her daughter. Those are the first names out of his mouth. That's what his wife told me.
That's a true sociopath.
You fucking better believe it. You better believe it. He is definitely that. You know, he went.
Did you ever? Did he leave your family? Like, was your family of a stature that he knew better to bother? Or
man, please, he ain't come nowhere near us, bro.
Okay.
He ain't come nowhere near us. He ain't come nowhere near people who were structured to get down. There was a lot of motherfuckers running around the street who just wanted to be pretty and fly and all that, and they weren't connected to nothing, weren't built to nothing.
They might have been tough on everybody. Like you said, they might have been tough on their own, but they were one or two guys and he could deal with them. But messing with you or certain other people, even if they got you, a whole lot came with it.
Yeah, it'll never stop. It won't stop until you're done.
Yeah.
He didn't. That's not what a smart extortionist, a smart pressure guy, they don't go out to create war. Can't get no money like that. They go after prey that they know they're going to be able to manage. You don't go after people who know that they're going to get down.
How many years was Preacher like 15 to 20 years he was doing that, right? Or in like mid 70s to early 90s or something?
20 years. He had about a 20-year run.
That's a long, boy.
Acting like a fucking maniac.
It must mean that community was, that was dope central for the whole East Coast, right?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Yeah, and Preacher did a lot of shit to a lot of people that people liked, that people, respected. People he grew up with, people he knew since childhood. You know what I mean? And he used the most flimsy of excuses to do that.
Oh, he'd have a reason, but
yeah, he was a true fucking sociopath.
Why do you think nobody well, not that you and your family ever did anything, but let's just say, why would some people in an organized structure, not your family, but someone similar, why wouldn't they just get a guy like that out the way? Or there was so much going on, if they didn't bother you, hey.
You gotta understand the nature of that game is, if you out here, you got to be able to handle what comes with it, right? Nobody's going to rescue a soft nigga because a soft nigga is a threat to everybody.
Yeah, and you drug dealer, you ain't no one. You doing something shady. Right. It ain't like
Right. Yeah. It ain't like he wasn't out there, extorting the church. You know what I'm saying? He was out there getting at people. A lot of the people he was getting at, a lot of them were, well, maybe not a lot. A few of them were in the way ass people. It was a lot of niggas running around the street back then, bro, that they did not have regard for the structure of the game. It was like the streets were their personal
playground
platform for self-aggrandizement.
And they were making it hot for everybody.
And that's what I like to tell Poe all the time. I was like, yo, bro, you are making it hot. Your behavior makes it difficult for everybody. And he tell me, oh, I'm just trying to have fun, man. This and the other. I'm saying, bro, your shit is making it. The way you behave is what causes the problems in this game to come about. Like, get your money and just go on about your life. Live your fucking life, bro.
Do you know who that guy was who he supposedly worked for, who he was scared of? Hurt or Love?
That Poe was scared of? Poe was scared of.
Yeah, like he was from his project. He was from his projects. I think Sub-Zero told a story about Love smacking him around in the project, something. But he was like working for him. Love?
That's when he was younger. That was before he came over to the West Side.
Okay, yeah. Love.
I think I know you're talking about. I gotta check Old Gangsters and Young Guns, because in Old Gangsters and Young Guns, he, that's my book for people who don't know. It's my third book. It's like a collective of the top 10 stories I did in Don Diva, which is my magazine, if you didn't know about that. And in it, I have transcripts, an indictment and transcripts and stuff from a court case from some little homie of mine who he's from DC. He had a crew out there called Young Guns. And this was in 2003. And I went to see him in a federal joint in Virginia. And he gave me this paperwork. And it's Alpo in court testifying. And in this testimony, now he's been in jail at that point for
8 years or something.
11 years.
Oh.
He's been in jail 11 years. So if you've been in jail 11 years, these kids are about 10 years your junior, what the fuck could you possibly be saying? What could you be saying?
Expert witness. Expert witness.
Expert fucking witness, bro. And people, you know,
So
people had no idea that's what he was doing.
Let's talk about that on the next one. I got an appointment I got to run to. But so let me just finish up with, did you ever hear of Blue Boy?
Prior to the thing with Larry?
Yeah.
He was a prison nigga.
Yeah.
You've been in prison since 82. When he went to jail, bro, most people didn't even have pagers unless they were a doctor or somebody who needs to be on call, let alone all the other shit that came about in the time that he wasn't around. I mean, they basically, I don't even understand. They let a fucking, a real Cro-Magnon, like a Flintstone out.
He had 3 prison murders.
And you let this fucking violent Flintstone out into the age of the Jetsons?
Yeah.
There's no telling what the fuck he would have done.
And I'm not trying to attack Glenn Davis or anything. He probably just don't know no better. But like, you know, me and you don't do a lot of things we could as far as interviewing, as just a lot of stuff we could make happen that would be cool and interesting. And probably a lot of it would not be a problem, but eventually it would, because we know some inappropriate human beings.
Yes, indeed.
But we know better, and we were not sociopaths, and we have some degree of care and money and everything. And anyways, you could get more, you know, like I look at a lot of some of these internet shows, like something bad may happen on one of them and kind of they may get some huge lawsuit. They could be injured. I don't know, because they're starting to get.
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yeah. You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what do you think about, you know, someone giving him and not that like Glenn Davis's fault, you don't know no better, but like what, I mean, should these people's thoughts be being broadcast? And I don't know what to do with them. I don't have a solution. He was let out, but like, he had to be a dangerous guy.
I mean, I don't understand why. I don't understand how he got out of jail. I don't. See, I know how that system works. I don't understand how he got out of jail.
That's what makes people think that the police allowed him to kill Larry Davis.
Oh, I'm pretty sure they wanted him to, because Larry was giving them the business inside the prison. He was giving them the business.
It didn't end. Oh, tell us about. So, do you know anything about Larry Davis's music stuff? You know, it was said. Did you discuss his record label, his rapping with him, and did you feel that was real? Or?
I mean, I was in the street. I didn't.
Well, what you said, you knew he was talented. What, like?
Because I knew he was into music, and you know, in the years since he got, you know, jammed and all that, you know, Deepak and them used to talk about all his music stuff. Oh, it was another brother. I don't know how I could forget Fats like that. Fats was heavy into his rap shit, but Fats was also, you know, he was a stick up nigga. You know what I mean? That was my little bro. He's a stick up nigga. So it was Fats, Deepak, Big Charlie, Little Charlie, DMC, and Larry. And you know, they were into the music pretty heavily, especially after this shit happened with Larry. They really tried to, you know, go in that direction, whatever. So that's how I learned more about Larry's talents. He could play instruments. You know, he
Where the hell
wrote
did he
songs.
learn how to do that?
Who knows? I mean, you know, some people, they're just in that manner, they're savants. Like some people just have musical talent in them and they're able to self-teach.
He
And
seemed pretty
I'm pretty sure he
charismatic.
probably self-taught.
Yeah, he seemed pretty reasonably charismatic. I mean,
Yeah, he was. Larry convinced a motherfucker to do some shit. He'll convince a motherfucker to do some shit.
I mean, in that environment, you know. So, okay, so let's talk. Let's do these more often. We don't have to be together. We can do these things because this is good. So, Young Cavario, what are you promoting? You got any health food products you're selling or anything?
Yeah. I will be releasing my podcast episodes this month, beginning this month. I've been quietly.
What's it called?
Dope, DOPE and Game. And I interview all sorts of people. You know, people in politics, people in the streets, people in sports. You know, people in business, all sorts of businesses. You know, and the point and purpose of the conversations I have is to give people insight into the various options that there are out there for life and life choices. Because it seems like a lot of people don't understand that you could be something other than a gun-toting, pill-popping, you know, drug-abusing, fucking rapper or fucking, you know, basketball player. Or
what's wrong with that, Cavario?
Well, ask YSL. Ask YSL what's wrong with it. There's going to be a lot more YSLs.
Thank you very much. Shout out to Big CV. So let's do another one in a few days. We can do it with Deepak or whatever you want to talk about. Get ready for Cavario's Open Game. Go on to his Instagram, cavario.online, a.k.a. the Mind Plug.
Yeah, and definitely hit the Mind Plug
Instagram. Yeah. Okay, well, you need your Facebook going too there, buddy.
Yes, absolutely. I got when we're done, I need you to bring up the speed on what I need to do to set up, get myself set up.
I'm going to eat. I got a 7:30 sushi appointment, and then I'll call you later.
Okay.
My guy.
All right, bro. Peace.